Project Management for Healthcare Managers, Week 7, Project Execution, Value Management, HTML 375. During the planning phase, we broke down the activities and estimated the costs of the time and materials needed, then created a budget. Make sure things stay on track means to verify that the tasks are following the schedule and that the actual costs match up with the proposed budget. Keeping track on a weekly basis to verify the status of costs means that the purchases made so far is what was predicted, and that the funds are available before the next set of costs will be paid out. Tracking whether costs are ahead or behind budget gives the performance of the costs. Tracking status and performance gives the project manager the ability to make the adjustments to be on time and on budget at the end of the project. Earned value management is an objective way to monitor project status and performance. Earned value management is a set of formulas that compares the planned spend against the actual cost paid out. The outcomes of the formulas give a standardized process for developing metrics for scope, schedule, and resources. Earned value management gives the progress of the project to date and also gives the rate of productivity to be able to predict the estimated cost at the end if the pattern of actual costs follow the same level of productivity. The concept of value focuses on whether the money being spent will equal the value of the project to the organization. Managing dollars and cents in a project is a good skill to have, and in healthcare, the accounting department is good at balancing the books. The concept of value adds in the idea, is this project worth it to the organization? A personal example of value can be how you spend your money. Would you spend $10,000 on a bicycle? $500 on a hammer? This would have to be a really good hammer, but most of us, the SAM hammer does not have $500 worth of value. A value analysis of a project proposes a similar question. Is the project worth it to the organization? Will a new computer system increase productivity or reduce the cost of medical mistakes to equal the price tag? Value engineering is when there is a balance. Too much will cause dissatisfaction and too little causes doubt in the quality. If someone tries to sell us a Porsche for $5, there would be some doubts about the quality or the legality of the offer. One of the first questions that get asked in a budget planning phase is to measure the cost against the benefit, or the value to determine if the project was worth the proposed cost. Earned value management uses the value determined at the beginning of the project and breaks it down into weekly segments. There is an assumption that cost equals value, that a project that costs $50,000 will bring $50,000 of value into the organization. The plan budget that is created in the planning phase is a roadmap for tracking the increase in value until the project ends, and all the costs are spent, and the value of the project is realized by the organization. The segments of value are typically broken down into the weekly parts, and the status is based on those parts. In earned value management, halfway through a $50,000 project, $25,000 should be spent, and $25,000 the value should be earned. This is a mental model for earned value management to track progress and performance. The assumption of partial value relies on the successful completion of a project. If you are willing to purchase a car for $10,000, half a car would probably not be worth $5,000. Earned value management is based on three values: plan value, earned value, and actual cost. Plan value is based on the budget and was created during the planning phase. Costs were estimated for each activity, and if the activities took multiple weeks, the cost was estimated to be spread over those weeks. Each week was a sum of the cost for that specific week. This would be the same as the increase in value in the project. The earned value is based on the percentage of planned work completed for that week. If all the tasks were completed for that week, then 100% of the scheduled work was completed. However, if the work was only half done, then 50% of the scheduled work was completed. The actual cost is the money that was actually paid out that week. Here's an example of the three different values. In this project, I had 3 tasks that should have been completed by the end of the week. The 3 tasks were to install a sink, replace a door, and replace an old window with a new one. I completed the sink and the window, but only got halfway on the door. In terms of work completed, the sink and the window were 100% completed and the door was 50% completed. During the planning phase, the sink install and the door and the window had been estimated using analogous estimating. I'd asked a colleague on how much they spent on a similar project and came up with a budget for $150 for the sink, $300 for the door, and $500 for the window. The total was $950 of planned value, or PV. To find the earned value, I multiply the amount of work done to the planned value. Since the sink was 100% complete, I earned 100% of the value that I had planned, so the earned value for the sink was $150. The window was the same. I earned the $500 that I had planned. Since the door was planned to have a value of $300, I completed half and earned 50% of the $300 planned value. Completing half earned $150 worth of the $300 door. The total earned value would be the sum of the earned value amounts, or $800. The actual cost is how much that what was spent. In this example, I spent $150 on the sink, which was planned. The door was not completed, and only $150 had been spent so far. The new window cost more than what was planned. I spent $600 on the new window for a total spend of $900. We will use our values to calculate measurements. The types of measurements are variances or indexes. A variance is a dollar amount, and an index is a ratio or fraction. For each type, there's a comparison of cost and a comparison of schedule. We'll start with the variance type of measurement. Variance is based on a dollar amount and gives us the amount that is ahead or behind. This model tends to be easier to understand and is best used when the projects have the same magnitude or relative size. The first variance is the cost variance. This is the actual cost subtracted from the earned value. In other words, what was the total earned value and how much did we spend for it? For example, the door was only halfway completed and its earned value was $150. Since we only spent $150 so far, the value earned equals the money spent and we are on target. The sign of the value tells us whether we are ahead or behind. If the value is positive, then we earned more than we spent and we are ahead. If we spent more than we earned, then we're behind. And if the earned value equals the money spent, we are on target. The schedule variance is the same outcome and gives the estimate of how we're doing on our schedule. We're comparing of how much work completed compared to how much work we planned to do. We had planned to complete $300 worth of door, and we only completed $150, so we're behind. The totals from the project are displayed, and we can calculate the overall variance for the project. The cost variance is the earned value, which is $800, and the actual cost is $900, and the total variance is minus $100. This means we're behind in costs. We spent $100 more for the window, so this makes sense. The schedule variance is the total earned value, or $100, minus the planned value, or $950, which gives us a result of behind $150. This metric was a dollar amount and used to measure the schedule. It looks like we're more behind in the schedule than we are in the costs. Index is based on a ratio or percent. The same values are used, but are divided instead of subtracted. This is helpful in comparing projects with different sizes and gives a relative value. For the cost index, we take the earned value over the actual cost. If we earn more than we spent, the numerator would be large, giving a value of more than 1. If we earned less than what we earned, the denominator would be larger and the number would be less than 1, and we would be behind in cost. For example, the cost performance index is calculated by dividing earned value by the actual value, or EV over AC, to get $800 over $900, or 0.88. The schedule performance index is calculated by dividing the earned value by the planned value, or $800 over $950, to get 0.84. Both are behind, but the SPI is further away from 1, so the schedule is doing worse than the cost. This summary compares the different terms we've covered so far. The install of the sink was 100% complete, and the actual cost matched the planned cost. The cost variance is 150 minus 150, and is 0, so cost is on target. The schedule is also on target because the earned value is the same as the planned value. If we calculate the index, the cost and the schedule have matching numerator and denominator and are 1 for both. The door is 50% complete, and the actual cost, $150, equals half the planned cost. The variance is 0 and the index is 1, which means the cost is on target. However, the earned value is half the planned value, which makes the schedule performance index 0.5 and the variance $150 behind. The new window was finished, but the actual cost was higher than anticipated. The cost index is 0.83 and the variance is $100 behind, not as far behind as the schedule for the door. When combined, we can see that we're behind in cost, which is caused by the extra expense of the window, and we're behind in schedule caused by the door. The schedule variance in the index is doing worse than the cost. The forecast from earned value management calculation is based on the estimated amount adjusted by the current performance of the costs. In other words, if we continue to perform the same, then we can calculate the final cost of the project. The BAC, or budget at completion, is the estimate of the whole project that is determined in the planning phase. To calculate the estimated total amount based on the current performance, divide the BAC by the CPI. In our example from the previous page, the total budget at completion should be $2,500. If we continue to perform with getting 2 jobs finished and only half of the third, we would divide 2,500 by 0.88 and get an estimated total cost of $2,840, which is a higher project spend than anticipated. Remember, if the denominator is less than 1, the final estimated amount will be bigger. This would allow early detection of higher costs to be able to adjust early on. Earned value management creates objective standards for status reporting. Instead of a gut feel from the team on what the color should be, you can use ranges from the indices to determine the colors. We talked about colors and status earlier. This is a way to standardize the measurements. If the CPI is above 0.85 and the SPI is above 0.95, the project would be green. Because of higher costs at the beginning of the project, the schedule needs to be closer to actual than the costs. For the yellow, the CPI needs to be equal or between 0.85 and 0.75, and SPI needs to be equal to 0.95 to 8.5, or to 0.85. For red, the CPI should be less than 0.75 and the SPI should be below 0.85. To apply earned value management calculation, we use action steps formula. The baseline includes the schedule and budget and gives weekly values from the planned accumulated costs. Then the project teams gather the progress of the work so far, and the earned value is calculated and compared to the baseline value. If the project is behind or needs extra money to complete the project, action can be taken to make adjustments to get back on budget. To review, earned value management relies on the idea that costs equal value, and that by identifying the estimated planned value, an objective measurement of progress and performance can be obtained. The variance is the difference between the earned value and the actual cost, or the earned value and the planned value. The index is a ratio or percent of cost, planned value, and work performed. Earned value management can be used to forecast the budget at the end of a project. Earned value score can be used to identify and report status.